So I noticed today, I think it was the WWF or the WWE. I think they uploaded it today. They're putting stuff out on YouTube, and it was Clash of the Champions Fall Brawl
From
80.
Colombia.
Yeah, 89,
Oh yeah.
where it was the main event was Sting and Flair against Dad's guys. It was Kenji, the Great Muta,
And Dick Slater,
and
because
Dick
Terry
Slater.
had infection in the arm, the staph infection. We said it was from Ricky taking the branding iron and beating him, but he had actually picked up a staph infection in the mat, and his arm swelled
Terry
up.
did
Yes, his arm swelled up
it,
tremendously.
just on a match somewhere.
Yeah, it was like, well, he had, getting hit, and
Hmm.
they didn't clean the mat apparently,
Yeah, because
and
I had forgot.
he caught a staph infection, and his arm was like swelling up.
So that was for real. He
Yeah, and it
was
was
really
secretion. But we, took in wrestling, we took something that happened and used it to our
right.
advantage. And Dad had to call Terry's wife, Vicky, and say, "Would you please tell this goof to go to the hospital and have his arm drained? Because he came this close to losing his arm. It was a hellacious infection."
Yeah, so I forgot about that.
And we
So
just said that Ricky took the branding iron and was popping him, which
so
was believable because they were doing that anyway.
yeah, because on the show it had Dad. And they did an interview with Dad,
And Terry said, "Don't you change that dial off of WTV."
but he was in the
Oh, you
hospital.
think that's funny? Yeah, that was a shoot
Yeah, he was
in
in the
Alexandria,
hospital.
Louisiana.
Yeah,
That's where his dad finally had him admit himself to the hospital.
I had forgot about that. I remember Terry being in the hospital and all that, but I forgot that he had
Oh,
really.
and you think that's funny, don't you?
Yeah, I thought it was cool too because they went to Dad's interview right after Lex Luger. Lex
Yeah.
Luger is one of my favorites. So I thought, just looking
Yeah.
back, like as an adult now, looking back at it then, it's like, wow, that was like with Lex Luger.
Yeah.
So in that, so that was the infamous
Bag match. Yeah.
where
Yes.
Terry came out and put the plastic bag.
Yes,
on
and
his head.
nearly
So,
got us thrown off of TV.
and was that Dad's idea together
Yes.
with Terry?
Well,
or was it that both of their ideas?
how
Because
this-
I saw Flair and Terry talking about it one time.
And they both blamed Dad. Well, of course, because it was Dad's idea. It was Dad and Terry kicking it around, and they just went back to Rick and said, "Hey, we're going to put a bag over here. Fine, just trying not to kill me."
Yeah,
But no, there was a reason for that. The backstory of that, though.
right. Well, okay. So, and when that originally aired on TBS,
September the 12th, '89.
When they aired it live,
Mm-hmm.
they, the bag that everyone saw.
Yeah,
the
Ricky
bag.
cut too.
Yeah, that's right. He had
Zing.
blood on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when they did the replay,
And Sting was already hurt, so they just clobbered his ankle with the branding iron. I think he had a broken foot at that time.
really,
Mhm.
Sting was already hurt.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay. Wow. So he wrestled that whole match with the broken
Yeah.
foot. So,
Nobody got days off.
yeah. What was I going to say?
About the bag?
Yes. Oh, okay. So in the replay, I thought it was interesting. I don't know how many people know this or whatever, but it might be in Dad's book. I don't know if he read
No,
about it.
it is.
But when they did so TBS got mad.
Yeah,
WTBS,
nearly took him off TV because the switchboards lit up.
And so when they did the replay, they cut out the part where they put the bag over his head. Why did they? What did they say? It was too violent.
Yeah, it was an attempted murder.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
then when the WWE released their Ric Flair documentary series, this is like in '04, and they released it in England, they had to take that out in the UK edit because you couldn't have that. Because at that, the reason why this was done, two reasons. One, TBS, Universal Wrestling Holdings, whatever kind of mark name that is that they came up with, they had told, there was an edict that came down to the wrestlers, no violence to a human, only violence to an object. And they're like, this is wrestling. Have you never watched this before?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a movie where Steven Seagal was on the ship, right? And you remember Dad seeing, and bags had been done in wrestling before. It wasn't the only time that it ever happened. The first time it ever happened on a nationally televised event.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain silly things going on in Atlanta, WCW at the time. You had a man like Jim Herd who really didn't have a clue about wrestling, should have been able to watch wrestling, let alone have a say about it. And no offense, Mr. Herd, but you just weren't over your head. You didn't know what you're doing. And they were doing a lot of silly things. There was a couple of wrestlers there that had silly gimmicks.
Sure.
And Dad was, well, we've got to be taken seriously. We got to do something to make a statement. And they made a statement, all right.
I never thought about that, like all the silly stuff that was going on.
Yeah, and Dad was always pretty much hardcore. And that's back in the day, too, where, and Jim Cornette can attest to this, when Michael Hayes got back into the mindset of, oh, we got to get some heat like the old days, because Dad and Michael were riding together quite a bit. And, Dad influenced Michael a lot of ways. But that's really the reason that was done. And it nearly got us thrown off of TV. and didn't end up helping Dad in a few months later when he had other problems with the office. And then
Yeah.
they said, then they pulled Dad and Terry Funk off to the side. And they said, whose idea was that? And Dad and Terry had already planned it out to say, oh, we're just kicking it around. And, just sort of like the
Yeah.
finger poke of doom. We don't remember whose idea it was. It just sort of happened. But no, that was the old man's idea because he wanted to be taken seriously.
Yeah. And I know you got a cool story about Flair from as we like not from too long ago, but
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, after that time period, like that was '89,
Mm-hmm.
fall of '89. And I always kind of thought that Dad and Flair, like they were always like I kind of thought like during that time period, the whole Terry Muda Sting Flair, I think I just don't think Dad and Flair got along like they did back when they weren't working together. You know what I mean? Like, and so,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I always kind of thought like after that, like Dad and Flair, just in my mind as a 10-year-old kid in '89, I kind of thought Dad and Flair in a shoot. I thought Dad and Flair weren't friends because I just thought they disagreed on so much that was going on at that time. Go ahead.
It wasn't so much that they were really good friends. They had been really good friends for about 10 years up until that point. But the problem was Jim Herd. I
Right.
mean, because Ricky worked here for Dad, and Dad would have not have been able to have the success that he had with the Von Erichs to be able to pull off the door slam without Ricky, because Ricky
Right.
was one of Dad's guys.
Yeah.
Because when Dad wasn't the promoter here in Dallas, but he was Fritz's booker, and and Fritz had a heavy hammer, and Dad spent a lot of time, championing Ricky as the guy you should keep the belt on. Because remember, Harley Race was a friend of Dad's. Harley wanted that belt back too. Dusty Rhodes, one of Dad's dearest friends. Dusty wanted that belt back too. So Ricky was one of Dad's boys. The only problem really wasn't Ricky was being driven nuts by Jim Herd at the time.
Right. That.
So it wasn't there was never any I hate you. They were very, very good friends. And you've seen Rick since then. I've seen
Yeah.
Rick several times since then. And he always makes it and you can attest this, whenever we see him, he makes it like it's as big of a deal and as important for him to see us
Right.
as it is us for to see him. Dad and Ricky, yeah, there was a little bit of friction at the end of that run, but it wasn't because of them. It was because of Jim Herd. You had a bunch of guys in that dressing room that were upset because of Jim Herd, but Dad and Ricky were very, very, very good.
Yeah. So the Flair story. I was like 20 years old, and I was in Philadelphia, and WCW Thunder was in Philadelphia, and I went down to the arena and got in. Terry Funk actually got me in to the arena, and so I was just hanging around, and I just was. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. All the wrestlers were there, and I just was setting out in the arena part of the Spectrum. And so, anyways, back up a little bit. So earlier when I first got there, uh, I just hear, you're in the dressing room area. It's a arena, like a basketball arena.
That's where the 76ers used to play.
Yeah, and I'm standing in the back, and I just hear "woo,"
Yeah,
like coming at a distance, and I hear.
I think it was Gene Okerlund. I think
The next time you hear "woo," it's getting closer.
woo.
I was like, Flair's coming down this way, and then lo and behold, I'm standing there, and there he is, Ric Flair. And then he walks. I go, Mr. Flair. I go, hey, I'm Gary Hart's son. My dad just wanted me to say hi to you. And he was real nice. He's like, oh yeah. And he shook my hand. He's like, and then he just kept walking. I was like, I was like, oh man, he hates my old man still. So, anyways, then I remember they had their lunch or whatever you call it, catering. And I saw him there, and he didn't say anything to me. And so, anyways, like, a couple hours later, 3 hours later, before the matches had started, I was just sitting out there in the arena, just sitting out there. And here comes Ric Flair. He just walks right up next to me, and super cool. And he I introduced myself to him again, and he was asking about the family and ask about mom, and he was just super cool. And I was like, it was nice because I was like, oh, okay, I guess he doesn't hate Dad after the whole '89 thing. But last time you saw him?
Last time I've seen him twice since then. I saw him at the convention that I went to in Charlotte, and he gave me one of these. So it was like, okay, cool, I've gotten over with him again.
But there's a cool story. You went down,
and
Kevin
then
said
I
to
was
come down
and
for
then
the
I was
WrestleMania.
yeah, I was. This was right during that same Charlotte trip. I was taking pictures because I had my plaque that they gave Dad,
Mhm.
and his wife at the time said, "Don't you want to get your picture taken with Rick?" I said, "Of
Yeah,
course."
who doesn't?
And then Rick looked at me before he even sees his wife talking. He goes, "Hey, Jace, birthday boy, woo! Come on over." And I said, "Hold up, whatever you're drinking." And I gave him a little hug, and I said something to him,
Yeah.
and then I
Was it your
walked
birthday?
off. When I went to Charlotte,
Yeah.
no, those what because he remembered when he ate pizza with me because my spill
Why did he
was
call you birthday boy?
because he remembered my birthday that year. Like when
Oh.
in '81 when he came over to the house, because my speech was not many kids
Oh,
on the
okay.
block could say that their uncles were Mark Lewin and the Spoil, and that Ric Flair had pizza pie with me on my birthday.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I was going to
I
say.
said,
He
he goes, "Yeah, I
remembered
helped
that.
you blow out the candles." I said, "Hey, yeah, you're a real humanitarian."
Yeah, he
He,
remembered that. Like
yeah,
what?
with you think of like all the Horseman run, the bag over the head, and everything else.
Yeah.
A bunch of trips to Japan, and he still remembered that. And the last time I saw him would have been I went down to WrestleMania was here in like '16, and I went down to the hotel where they were staying at because I was going to go see Kevin Von Erich. And then I pulled up and I see the WrestleMania logo. Said, "Okay, I'm at the team hotel." So then I drive up and I go into the bar and I see the back of a blonde guy's head, and I say, "Okay, that's either Freddie Blassie," but Freddie had already passed away, or it's Ric Flair. And then he's stand up against the wall. I say, "Rick," I said, "Champ, it's me, Jason, Gary Hart." So he goes, "Son of a bitch, kid." He
Hmm.
pulls me in, hugs me. And then I'm just sitting over there on the couch, and then he just walks on over there. And I
Yeah.
said, "Please tell me you're not driving." He goes, "No, I'm getting a limo." And
Yeah.
he starts introducing me to everybody. And then when it's time for him to leave, I said, "You taking off?" He goes, "I'm taking off." I hugged him. I said, "Good seeing you." He goes, "Always good to see you, kid." And he was out the door. And I said, "Okay, I've seen what I got to see. I'm leaving."
Yeah, but every time, even like when Dad went back to the Carolinas in the '80s, like in '88 with Perez, every time he'd see us, I remember he'd always say, "We ate pizza pie
Yeah.
together," and
Yeah.
he did because he came over to the house
Yeah.
and we ate pizza. It was your birthday. I
Yeah,
didn't know
it
it was your
was.
birthday,
Yeah.
and so we had pizza with Ric Flair.
Yeah.